Welcome to Measurably Better Learning, the podcast built for learning and development professionals. Whether you're an instructional designer, L&D professional, or corporate leader, get ready for insights and ideas that will transform your approach to learning, training, and development. So let's dive in.
Welcome to this episode of the Measurably Better Learning podcast. I'm Miriam Taylor, and I'm here with my colleague and guest and good friend, Dr. Jerry Zandstra. And we are almost done with our series on the learning leader as. We've talked about a lot of topics. So today we're going to talk about being a technology visionary. And I'm actually very excited to hear from you on this because you are a visionary. I may poke fun at your tech skills sometimes, but you are definitely a visionary.
Yeah, I think if most people who have worked with me or knew me knew that I was going to be talking on this topic. But there's some strategies and ways to think about this. You know, I should never be the person that recommends one technology over another. There are people way smarter than I am and way more experienced than I am. But thinking about technology in the context of being a learning leader is hugely important. And, you know, it used to be that the technology that we dealt with was some LMS, one or another, right? And then some form of storyline or lector or something. So we have something where we're creating, you know, we have a software that we're creating in, and then we have another software where this thing is going to live. And hopefully those two things talk to each other. Plenty technical enough. Not so anymore, my goodness.
I remember doing my own editing work and voiceover and then hitting publish, and it would render all night, and I would cross my fingers when I got up in the morning it hadn't crashed at some point.
Something green was flashing, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, yeah, things are just moving so rapidly now.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, what about AI? Yeah, and that's not even, that's a whole separate, I mean, we used to talk about tech tools in terms of creation and things, it's not just a tech tool.
No, you know, the 5 years ago, 7 years ago, you know, we started having more serious conversations about augmented reality and virtual reality. Still incredibly cool technology. I mean, not all of it is practical.
Right.
It has its applications, and it has, you know, it works for certain learners. It works in certain scenarios. It was a little bit siloed, and we've seen the pricing come down,
For sure.
where VR is more reasonable, AR's augmented reality is more reasonable. AI is there's really no part of learning that remains untouched.
Agreed. Yeah.
There's no area where you say, well, you know, AI doesn't have an impact here. And I can't think of, I mean, if I apply it to learning, I can't think of another equivalent. And honestly, thinking broader about more broadly about the applications of AI in industry, business, nonprofits, church world, you know, family life, personal access to information. I really can't think of anything that is that much of a sea change.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
it's going to change us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think if you just thinking through some examples and, you know, as a learning experience designer, there is, if you go through LinkedIn or other places, there's a great deal of fear from some people. But then I think we also need to look at understanding that designing an experience is very different than creating content. And AI can curate content very well. And I'd love for you to just talk to us about some different examples, because I also want our listeners to not be afraid to broaden their use of how they use it, because it can help them greatly. What I think of it as is it frees me up from the mundane to actually design something that's amazing.
There's this is not going to be a comforting statement, but there's a decent reason to have some fear here. Not to take over the world and destroy all humanity. You know, you hope that doesn't happen. But this is going to be, and already is, hugely impactful. But let's talk about the stuff that doesn't change.
Right.
What doesn't change is good learning theory.
Mm-hmm.
What doesn't change primarily is how people learn.
Mm-hmm.
And what doesn't change are the needs of the organization. So there's the process for creating, the steps that you go through for creating, really aren't that different. How people are going to learn isn't really all that different.
Mm-hmm.
The AI, like you say, is a tool, but helping you when you're doing a needs analysis with a client, right, and trying to understand who their learners are. AI's ability to give you a really clear picture, that's phenomenal. You can gather the data, but
Mm-hmm.
its ability to summarize, and you still need to be there.
Right. Agreed. You're bringing your expertise.
You need to be in that conversation, and your
Mm-hmm.
ears and your mind need to be working, and your eyes need to be working and thinking through how to solve this. Then, okay, so you've got a needs analysis, you've got a path established, you've built sort of the project management piece of this, how you're going to build it. Then you start, building storyboards,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you get approval on that, and you get, alpha, beta, gold, all of those things, delivery and marketing to people that are eventually going to take the course. All of those steps are still there, but AI should be
Yeah.
a part of every single one
Agreed.
of those
Right.
steps.
Right.
And I think it's really easy to think AI can replace that. It can
Mm-hmm.
augment it
Mm-hmm.
and improve it and make it more efficient and faster. But, the human mind is still a remarkable thing.
Yeah.
And I think if you put your head in the sand, though, you're in trouble.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to your own detriment, because I think there's a lot of ways that it can, the bane of a lot of, we talk really practically, the bane of a lot of instructional designer, you just get a ton of source materials dumped on you.
Right.
And you have to sift through all of them. Well, not anymore.
No,
You can use
marvelous.
AI to generate an outline from that content, to
Yep.
identify gaps,
Yep.
to identify redundancies. Like, it's
Yep.
just amazing. So,
Yep.
well, thank you. When we return, let's talk a little bit about navigating challenges, right? Because we have these new technologies, but how do we implement them?
Yep.
Imagine a world where every training session, every learning module, and every translated document is aligned with your company's unique goals and global ambitions. Welcome to Ingenuity, where we don't just talk about elevating your corporate learning, we make it happen. At Ingenuity, we understand the heart of your business is its people. That's why we specialize in creating custom learning solutions and translation services that are not just effective, but are designed specifically for your business's global needs. Let us show you how learning cannot be just better, but measurably better, with solutions tailored just for you. Learn more in the description below.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, as promised, Jerry, let's just dive into how do we navigate the challenge of implementing new technologies? You've already hinted at sometimes there's fear or resistance, or how does a learning leader, they probably aren't going to be a technology expert. You alluded to that yourself, right?
Yeah.
We don't
I'm not.
know every little technical detail, but how do we start to implement those in an organization?
It's not a cookbook recipe. You mentioned LinkedIn Learning, and I think you and I both, just yesterday in a phone call, referenced the LinkedIn Learning survey that said something like 80+% of people want to learn AI, and about 28% are actually being trained in it.
Right.
There's just on learning teams, right? And then there's all the learning that needs to happen outside of your learning team to train people. I think we're thinking of this too individualistically, like how does this impact me rather than how does this impact the whole system. But,
Okay.
I think particularly in the leadership role, the learning leader, the CLO, the VP, the director level, those are almost assuredly not the people with the highest level of technical skills.
Oh, right.
And that's probably a really bad use of their time if they're spending 25 hours a week,
Yes.
playing in the latest version of Gemini or some other AI tool. But you have to keep, I used this before, kind of the weather eye, the Pirates of the Caribbean. Somebody has to always be looking at the horizon. Doesn't mean you're the smartest person in the technology, but you also should be, keeping an eye out, but also should be developing the skills within your team where they're feeding you. They're feeding you some of the most recent stuff. They're feeding you and giving your team a little place to play.
Yeah, right. I love that.
A little sandbox.
Yep.
You and I have done that before with members of our team where we've said, okay, we just, I don't want you doing this 40 hours a week, but you need a place to play and then come back and help the rest of us learn, teach the rest of us. We haven't always been successful in doing that because other things pop up.
Right.
But it's the cobbler's kids who have the worst shoes right in the neighborhood, and here we are, the learning team, and we're not really learning stuff. There's some intentionality that's that we need to take and have and make sure is available to us and to the people on our teams.
No, I completely agree. It's something you and I, like you said, have tried to implement, and I would say off and on to great success. So it doesn't have to be big and complicated either. Sometimes it's just a internal chat channel and someone says, hey, have you looked at this?
Or lunch and learns.
Exactly. Right. All those things. Right.
Yep.
Well, as we wrap up, Jerry, just a few, we talked about these a little bit, but are there any, what are some of the roadblocks to finding new technology? I mean, you've alluded to some of them, and what have you done to kind of, overcome those?
Well, I think, people get in a pattern of how they work.
Sure.
And if you've done a job for a while, chances are you've gotten good at it. You've got your standards and you've got your procedures. So some of the roadblocks are, just in between our ears.
Right.
I know what I'm doing. This thing is a fad. I've read some articles like that. AI is a fad. I
Really
think,
interesting.
well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
But it's a resistance to change. It's fear of failure. What if this goes badly? Specifically to AI, there's some ethical issues.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's some bias that comes out of AI sometimes, and there are copyright issues. We're a long way from this being morally and ethically settled. So the human factor is hugely important, but it having the courage to move past your own patterns. And
I like the way you said that. Yeah.
I have a good friend who told me his grandpa used to say this whole automatic transmission thing will never catch on, right? Because people love
thankfully it did.
Shifting gears, right? And this is a fad, right? And my own great grandpa drove a car one time. He drove it directly into the barn, and it was a truck actually, it was a farm truck, and he drove it. First truck on the farm, drove it right into the barn, and they said, what were you doing? And he said, I kept yelling, whoa, and this thing wouldn't stop. So and after that he was done. He was good with horses.
Yeah.
That lasted a little while, but that's not a strategy. So overcoming the fear of it, and then seeing your role as an L&D professional as helping other people figure out how to engage technology in an appropriate way. And something important, a really important word, in a humane way.
Yeah. Yep.
Keeping, central focus on human beings and the dignity of the human person. That's probably going to provide one of our biggest challenges for AI in every facet of work and life.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because I think a lot of our listeners, when we talk about learning leaders, technology visionary, there's fear. There's also this, it's this huge issue, and it's a great way to end, right? Focus on enabling your team and helping them keep it humane is a great way to end. And if that's your central focus, you're not going to go wrong.
No,
with it.
I agree.
Yeah,
that won't be easily done.
Right.
Takes some intentionality, but worth it.
Well, thank you for your time today, Jerry.
You're welcome.
Before we wrap up the show, if you're looking to dive deeper, we've got tons of free downloads, L&D resources, and details about upcoming webinars that you won't want to miss. They're found in the episode description. Plus, if you ever want to chat with either one of us, now's your chance. You can find links in the episode description to connect directly with Miriam or me. We're here to answer your questions and to discuss all things learning and development. And speaking of questions, we love hearing from you.
Whether it's a question or a comment or a topic you're curious about, or if you just want to join the conversation, drop us a comment on your favorite social media channel. Your input shapes our shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. It's the best way to ensure you never miss out on our latest episode. We're excited to continue to transform learning into a measurable success with you. Until next time.